Hello you lovely lot, and welcome to the beautiful Partridge Lakes, where yet again it is Winning Ways Basics time. You'll notice Jamie's not here because he's nowhere near basic enough for this, so it's left to me. Good luck folks. But anyway, today we're going to be going through mudline fishing, and in particular catching F1's. First and foremost though, what is an F1? Now F1's, I mean, we did a quiz on this when we did our challenge. They've been in our waters for 25 years, Richard-ish, there or thereabouts. They're originally introduced, obviously, to basically get you more bites on the winter. An F1 is a hybrid fish crossed between a crucian and a common, but then you've got variations of F1s as well. You've got ghost F1s, which is a crucian and a ghost carp. You've got F2s, which is a crucian and a mirror carp. You've got blonde F1s, which is, I don't know, what's a blonde F1, Richard? I ain't got a clue, I don't know what a blonde F1 is, but you get a blonde F1. So there's lots of different variations, but we're fishing for your standard F1, if you like, today, which is a cross between a crucian and a common carp. Now, obviously, we're on Covey 1 here. There is carp present as well. Now, how we're going to fish, we are going to catch odd carp if they're in the swim, but I'm not really going to be feeding for carps. I'm going to be going through the baits and tactics that I'm going to use to target F1s. First and foremost, you've got to make sure that your rigs are bang on. We'll talk through plumbing up in a sec, but I'm going to go through rigs with you first, obviously elastics, and then the bait that we're going to use, and then we'll get onto plumbing up, and I'll show you why I'm fishing where I am to start off with, but that might change throughout the session. So first things first, rigs. Now, the main thing, I'm just going to take that little babby pot off first. The main thing with mudline fishing, folks, is your floats have got to be, they've got to be bang on. They've got to be this like little short stubby floats. You don't want to be using a longer float, something like this that I've got set up on here. Let me show you. Like the floats that we bang on about all the time, them ones, the sort of like traditional Chianti style of float, if you like, stretch rugby ball. You don't want to be using them in shallow water, and we're talking water up to a depth of, I always say, folks, when I'm coaching, no more than 2.5 foot for these particular floats. Anything deeper than that, what happens is the float becomes a little bit top heavy. It's not stable enough and it starts sort of like wobbling round. But when you go into depths of sort of 2.5 foot and less, certainly with how we've shotted it, which we'll go through in a sec, the float is so stable. Yeah, all you're striking at is a nice positive bite. So let's start from the top first, elastic wise. Because we are fishing for F1s, don't get me wrong though, there's carp present, but we're fishing for F1s first and foremost. We've not got an overly heavy elastic on. This is what I'll use for all my shallow fishing, you know, to cushion those fishes. It's 11's Dura hybrid elastic. Cushions everything. You will get carp out as well, but for F1s you're getting quite a bit of elastic coming out on the strike. What you'll see them do is the fish will swim off that far bank and come down the slope, then you can just play them down in the middle of the canal. Nice and easy. Said it now, they want that. We've got a nice reed bed. They're probably going to go tear assing into the blooming reeds, aren't they, and do us, but hopefully not. Main line is 0.18 AccuPower, which is pretty much standard for all my rigs this time of year. You know that, Richard? 0.18, nice and robust line. Never going to let me down that. Never gonna let you down. And then you'll notice just above the float, we've got 2 number 8 back shots. Now, Tipex white. Now the reason I've Tipex them white is because we're in dark water, and you'll see when we get fishing, I want to make sure I can see them shots all the time. If they were just straight out of the packet, I wouldn't be able to see them back shots. You might be giving yourself false bites. So paint them white, and you can see where they are all the time. And then up onto the float itself now. So this is a carp shallow, Preston's carp shallow 4x14s. I won't really go any heavier and I won't really go any lighter. A 414s or like a 0.4 gram equivalent float will be absolutely bang on for all your mudline fishing. If you're going into sort of deeper water, as I explained before, or if it's a little bit windier, that's when you change floats. But for all this mudline fishing, that's what you want. Now coming down the line, incidentally, I've set this to around 16 inches. I'll talk about that, why I've set it to 16 inches. Reason being, I can get into sort of 12 or 13 inches of water today, folks, but good old British blooming weather, it's not been the warmest, so I don't know if they'll come into that right shallow water. They might do as the session progresses, you know, obviously if that sun eventually comes out and starts, you know, really heating that far bank up, then by all means, yes, the fish could go into that shallow water. But to give myself the best chance of getting bites, I've found sort of 60, well, yeah, what we're saying, 16 to 20 inches is about optimum depth. If you can get that depth where it's nice and flat, that's where you want to be starting off at. If this was right tight against the bank, that'd be even better. That'd mean that the fish can't get behind my rig and there's less chance of foul hookers and line bites off these fish. But you'll see where I am today. I'm a good sort of 2 foot off the bank where I get this depth. We'll go through that more when we're plumbing up. Main thing with this mudline style of fishing, though, getting on that reshad, is that bulker shot there. You simply must have a bulker shot. Now these is 5 number 8s. Shots, all stots. I'm not going to say it matters, folks, because it doesn't. I personally prefer shots because they don't move, but stots, not wrong with them. But make sure they're on a little bulk. You don't want it spread, anything like that. Basically, you have them in that bulk to eliminate line bites first and foremost. But the main thing is when you're getting them lightning fast bites, you're lifting up and you're striking into the fish. We'll probably miss the odd bite because it is F1's, but it's giving yourself more chance with them bulker shot there, seeing them bites and hitting them straight away. And then hook length wise, I've just gone for a generic 4-inch hook length. It's straight out of the packet, folks, to 0.13. It's one of them. So straight out of the packet, the Preston ones, the GPMs are 6 inches. I've just trimmed it down to 4 inches. Yes, if I was fishing in shallow water, maybe, what we're saying, sort of 8 inches to 12 or 13 inches, I'd probably go to a 3-inch hook length, but you shouldn't have any trouble just fishing in 4-inch hook lengths. You know, you've seen that bite nice and quick, and it does make a difference fishing shorter hook lengths, so just go for 4 inches. So that's the rig. We'll go through plumbing up in a sec, but we're going to go through bait choices first. Dead simple, folks. I've not got any more maggots than that. The beauty of what we're going to feed and how we're going to fish, you can put whatever you want on hook, basically. Personally, this time of year, you know how much I love using maggots, especially white maggots for this time of year. I'll be putting sort of 2 or 3 maggots on a hook, yeah? So good, such a brilliant bait, catches everything swimming. There's not a fish swimming that won't eat a maggot, including little goujons. We've also got some expanders. These are just the Sonu Pro expanders, 4 mils. Literally, I've taken them out of a bag this morning, put them in some water, and you can see there that they're all sinking. Yeah, dead simple. If you wanted to be a little bit more selective and really sort of focus on, you know, the F1's and the carp, then put an expander on. And then the next thing is, I'll go for pot choice in a sec, but I just want to talk you through the bait. So what we've got, I've got my dampened down micros. We've done loads of videos on this, folks. I'm not going to bore you and, you know, go through how to prepare them, but basically soak them 30 seconds, drain it off, and then we've got our over wet ground bait, which is Match Method Marine in this case, because I want it to stay there. There's a couple of different ground baits that I'll use, but Match Method Marine and Power Scopex, them are my 2 absolute favourites in the whole wide world. So I've got 1 ground bait, 1 micros. Now starting off wise, because I want to get a few fish in the peg, I don't just want to go straight in with ground bait because there's no food content in there. But then for F1's, I don't just want to go straight in with micros, simply because F1's and the way they feed, certainly these little babby ones, you might get them in coming in too big a numbers, and then what that does, obviously, gets too many fish in your peg. They start blowing your bait everywhere, and then liners, foul hookers. So what I've done a 50-50 mix. So I've got a handful of my ground bait, a handful of my micros, and I've just mixed the 2 together like that. Dead simple. So you've got the best of both worlds. You've got the attraction of the ground bait, but then you've got the micros to sort of keep fish in your peg, but not too many that you're going to get too many fish in your peg and fill them up and obviously ruin your swimming effect. So really simple. But as I said, for hook bait choice, you know, you could just, there's limitless, you know, worms and corn and meat, this, that and the other, but we're keeping it dead simple today, folks, yeah? The next thing I want to talk through is your pot choice. So my pot choices for F1's is going to be these 2. So we've got the small Preston toss pot and the medium Preston toss pot. Notice on that medium one how I've cut the holes out. That is for a quick release. You'll see when we're going in, putting the bait in, a count of about 2-3 seconds maybe, your bait's come out and it's in a nice little pile. I want to feed nice and quick, because sometimes these F1, they're straight on your bait. Yeah, they're on it nice and quick, so you want to make sure that your bait's getting down to the bottom and you're getting your hook bait over. So them are the 2 that I'll feed. I don't want to feed them off. If I feel they're getting too many fish in your peg, I'll change to that. If I feel there's not enough bait in, I'll change to that. If it's carp, I know we're focusing more on F1's, I'd use that one. That is the large Preston toss pot. I'd go to that, and maybe the paste pot, which is the same size again, bigger, if it was for carp, or if I didn't feel there's many fish coming into the peg, a quick 2 or 3 feeds with that, we'll get them F1s coming in, then we can change again. So it's all about experimenting on the day, but starting off wise, that's what we're going to start off with. So that's the rig talk through, the bait talk through. Obviously all we've got to do now is get the right depth. So I'm going to do it in a one, Rich, or what we're doing, we're going to stop there and I'm going to show you plumbing up. Right, plumbing up wise, just before we go to plumb up though, folks, I didn't talk you through properly what mudline fishing was. Basically, you see the reeds we've got in front of us, that's not a mudline. Where we're going to the right, where you can get right tight to the banking, that's what you call a mudline. And you fish exactly the same as what we're doing today over there. You do exactly the same down the edges as well, yeah? Nice and simple. So, plummet's on. I've set it to 16 inches and I want to go and try and find that depth. Obviously, if it's horrible and really slopey, then I might have to plumb around a little bit, but I have had a sneaky plummet before. So, ship that across. The other thing with F1s as well, which will make a difference, it's not imperative, big word for me, I know folks, is stiffening everything up. Yeah, so if you've got short threes, use them, and certainly if you've got short kits on these kind of waters, make sure you're using them, because they do make a difference in hitting them bites, because they are quick, as you'll see later on. So first things first, I'm going to get my marker, which is there, yeah, joints level with me middle leg. The next thing is my marker. I've got a marker in the far bank, sort of 10-12 inches off the water. There's sort of like 2 holes, probably where stones have been, and I'm just going to plumb up to the right hand one there. So I want to be just at the bottom of the body of that float. So you see there, that's what we're plumbing up on. Yeah, bottom of the body of the float. Now if I go a little bit further off, so I'll go right tight to the banking, there I'm sort of like almost a full float, you know, sort of shallower. Now by all means the fish could go into that depth, but I don't want to start off in that depth. I want to start off a little bit deeper water, and then that'll give me the option, if we are seeing fish behind our float, that can give me the option to fish there. Don't get me wrong though, if it was like a lot warmer, yeah, and the water was warm and like really coloured, I probably wouldn't fish where I am. I'd get straight towards that back of that bank. The tighter you can get into the bank, the less chance you have of getting liners and foul hookers, because basically the fish can't get behind your rig. Where I am now, you see we've got, it's a good foot in it, it's probably like 16 inches between my float and the far bank. All that area behind here, where I'm tapping my pole there, the fish can get behind that. Yeah, so if they're coming in the wrong way, and more fish are coming in that way, the chances are they're going to miss your bait, and obviously that's when you're going to get liners or foul hookers. But we can keep an eye on that, and certainly with, like I've already explained, because it's a little bit clear, it's a little bit cold, that water, that's why I'm just coming down that slope a little bit. So just to give you an idea, if I come back a little bit more, it's just ever so slightly, yeah, you see it's just getting that slightly bit deeper every time, but it's not sort of like severe. It's what I call a nice slope, yeah, nice and gradual, and that's what we want, yeah. Flat bottom is perfect for obviously settling your rig, but it's not necessarily clearing your bait out. When you've got a slight, you know, slope, when you're striking into the fish, your bait is naturally travelling down that slope, so you're fishing clean every time you go over and then bait up. So that's plumbing up wise done. I'm happy I'm on my markers. The only thing that I need to keep an eye out for is fish getting behind my rig, basically. But as for that, we are done. The only thing I'm going to do first is put a little bit of bait over there. I'm not one who'll go straight in with a little babby pot. I like to go in with a big pot, just get some bait in. So what I'm going to do, so we've got either one, I don't know whether it's 125 or 150 mil. What do you reckon, Richard? 150, 125. Yeah, little big pot, I like that. So little big pot, and I'm going to sort of quarter fill it. I'm not going to put loads in. If it was carp, it'd be completely different. I completely fill that. I might even give them sort of 2 or 3 pots, or even 4 pots, and then wait. But for F1s, I want to get straight on them, nice and quick. So I'm literally just going to pick up a little bit of ground bait, probably about the equivalent I'd be able to fit in a large toss pot. Yeah, that goes in there. So we've like quarter to half filled it. I'm just going to go straight across, because obviously, I mean, I'm talking about match now, but obviously, you know, pleasure fishing as well. If I was in a match, I'd be feeding a few more different swims. So the first swim I'd feed would be the swim that I'm starting off fishing. So by feeding this first and then feeding my other swims, 2 or 3 minutes is passed. by the time I fed them, I'm going straight back across there. Hopefully there's fish waiting for me. And obviously you can incorporate that into your pleasure fishing as well, folks, yeah? Always feed the swim where you're going to start off fishing first. So first things first, I'm going to sit where I was on my box, get to my marker, which is the joint over that middle leg, and then I'm on that right hand hole, and I'm just going to sneak that bait in there. Lovely. That's all we need to do. Nice and simple. So that bait's been fed. I'm going to put a little baby pot on, and I think we need to go and catch some fishes. Are we doing it in this one? Oh, go ahead then. Richard's giving me the okay. We're doing it in one. Right, so even though I've just put that pot in, I am still going to feed again. Right, what you've got to consider now, which is very important, is you see that little pot there, it's most tight, yeah, sort of like an inch back on my pole. If I was to put it right on the tip of the pole, sometimes your rig can tangle around it, but also it's not as tight a fit in there. You can put like a wrapper tape around it if you want, but I like to push it back a little bit so I'm not getting my line wrapping around it. What you've got to bear in mind is at that end though, what I'll have to do is stretch out another sort of inch or two to allow for that drop. Yes, and my float's directly under. You watch what happens when my pole pot comes back though. Yeah, so where my pole is there, my pole pot comes back, I need to make sure that I'm stretching out a little bit so that when my pole comes down, it's right over my float, if that makes sense. So you've got your mark, you know where you're fishing on this middle leg. I'm going to stretch out another couple of inches to allow for that drop so that the bait is absolutely bang on. Know what I'm on about, me, don't I? You know what I mean? I do like waffling though. So I'm going to start obviously with a bait that is going to get me a bite first and foremost. I'm going to go for 3 white maggots. Normally I'd start off on 2, but there's lots and lots of goujons in here, folks. I mean, we're probably going to get the odd goujon on 3 maggots. So what I've got to do is build the swim up first with these F1's. Now you might think 3 maggots for an F1 is a big hook bait. It's not, folks. You know what I mean? These F1's, they're proper feisty, they'll proper have it. Pellets is probably the best sort of F1 bait you can get, but the trouble with pellets, if I was fishing that over there, them goujons might get on it. So I'm going to wait a little bit until, you know, we're getting the F1's in the peg, and they'll clear the goujons out, so then I can go over with the pellet, hopefully get a faster bite. So even though we're just fed, you know, probably a couple of minutes is passed, I'm going to load that pot up. So what I've done, I've overfilled the pot, and then what I want to do is just lightly press that down so it stays in. Now basically when I'm over there, you'll see me, I'll twist the pot completely round first, stretch out a little bit, then put the pot under the water, 2 or 3 seconds, lift it up really slow, and then your bait creeps out and your bait's just left in a tiny little pile like that. It's such an effective way of fishing, it really is. Here we go then, let's see what happens. So first things first, my marker. Yeah, that's my marker there, that joint. So I'm going to bring that pole through on my middle leg. Always one, see that fish there already that got spooked? That'll be an F1. So come back a little bit, let's do that again. Stretch out a little bit, twist your pot over, right under the water, 2 or 3 seconds, lift up nice and slow, and that's come out. Come back to your marker, lift that rig up, and then we're just going to put it into play there. Now what I'm waiting for is nice fast bites. Anything slow or to the side, I'm going to ignore. Just going to bring that float up into my feed a little bit. So already there's probably odd goose on there. That'll give you them little tiny little dinks. What I'm looking for as well, folks, is making sure that my float is always on my marker. When you get them fish coming into your peg, you'll find that, you know, by the fish rooting round, it'll naturally waft your float around, you know, from left to right, or maybe pushing it up that slope a little bit. But I want to make sure I'm on my marker all the time. So I'm over that little pile, see what I mean? Oh, that's a perch. Go on, a perch. Perch they love ground bait. But it's things like that that you're going to have to wade through first. But obviously that is the beauty of using the bait that we're on, yeah, the feed bait that we've got, and the micros and the ground bait. You can use whatever hook bait you want. It really doesn't matter. But obviously if you're still catching them little babby fish after sort of 20 minutes or so, then obviously we'd have to change hook bait then. But starting off wise, I was always expecting, I thought it'd be huge, I don't think we catch perch. I was always expecting little fish to start off with. So again, slightly past my feed, 2 or 3 seconds, up nice and slow, baits come out, lift that rig out so everything's going down nice and straight, and lower it into place, and that's set. You can tell when there's little fish there because you just get them little tiny dinks. Oh, that was a big fish. You see how fast that was? Yeah, even though it sort of like didn't go under the water, it was like fast. So obviously that fish is coming to the peg, seen that big standout bait and nailed it. It's such an effective way of fishing, folks. It really is. I absolutely adore it. Might be a bigger F1 this one. There's been a lot of stockies gone into these covies the last sort of like couple of years. And they're in like different age groups at the minute. Been a lot of like, you know, the smaller one. This feels like a bigger one, this. And the blooming nightmare if we go under your platform as well, folks. I'm not going to scoop it. And wait till he pops up. But this is why you need ideally these short kits as well, folks. See where they're popping up, yeah? If I had a longer top kit on, it'd be out there somewhere. But where they put, oh, it's a lovely one in. But where they pop up. Right, now at this stage, folks, I was waiting until I caught a fish before I showed you this. Make sure, when you're bringing a fish back, once you've netted it, make sure you bring your top kit back as well. Because I don't want my float, you see when my float is on the rim of my net there, if that fish was flapping around, what could happen is it could move your float up and down. So you want to make sure your float's always over the fish. So at that stage there, I'm going to bring the fish back into my lap. Again, look where my rig is. Yeah, I don't want it here in case it flaps around. Grab the fish, and then that's just getting tucked under your arm. Oh, what are we saying, Richard? 9? 8.5, that'll do for me. Unhook him, grab that rig, and then he goes in there. And then you're just repeating the process. It's like, obviously, you've got to keep an eye out on what's happening with them fish. You know, even some anglers, after catching that first little babby fish like that perch, it'll put a lot of anglers off that. They might think, oh, there's only little babby ones there, because we've put that big pot in, put another medium pot in, and we still have that perch. So they'd have been falling into that trap of, nope, need to big pot it again, or need to change my hook bait. Them little babby fish, this time of year, folks, you are going to get them. There's nothing you can do about that, but it's all about keeping in touch with the feeding. When them F1's rock up, keeping in touch and not getting like funny bites, liners, foul hookers, that's when, you know, choosing your pot size is so important. So, if your maggots were still on, get rid of them and go fresh every time. Incidentally, I'm hooking these through the tip. Yeah, I'm not hooking them through the fat end. Let me show this. Let me show the GoPro. Is it on, Richard? I don't know. I might have done, actually. It's on though, isn't it? Oh, Richard. That's better. That's all right there, isn't it? How do I check it's on now? He's on. He's on. Yeah, through the tip. Get zoomed in just in case, Richard. We're showing you to the wrong bit. Yeah? All through the tip, all that vibration, all that wriggle. Don't need to kill him or anything like that. Just make sure that you hook him through the tip. And again, overfill it, light press down, and then we go again. Really simple. There's nothing complicated in what we're doing, but you've got to get the basics right. You've got to get the fundamental parts of it right. You've got to make sure you feed him right, and then that your rig is right over your little trap every time. It's such an effective way of fishing. So again, onto your marker there, stretch out a little bit, twist the pot round first, under the water, 2 or 3 seconds, up nice and slow, come back, lift your rig out, and drop it into place. There you go, trap set. And we're looking for them little tiny dinks. There's fish on that straight away. Yeah, little tiny little dinks like that. Could probably do with hiring. No, I'll be all right actually. Goodness, I could do with hiring that float. Now you'll see I've just dropped down that slope a little bit. I can tell that. Look where my back shots are when I'm dropping them in the water. I'm sort of like 1 inch or 2 inches back from where my bait is. So what I'm going to do is just literally just lift my float out and just lower that back down again. Because I want to make sure that I'm fishing nice and accurate over my little pile of bait. And you see how that float's just high, riding that little bit higher, just because we are up that slope. One thing that can spoil this style of fishing, folks, certainly if you're fishing at any kind of distance, is right. So we had a bit of a bow wave then. It could have been a carp, but you see we had a bow wave. Now what's happened there, fish has come in, obviously felt the line and spooked out. Your bait, that's gone over a big pile, but that's the beauty of fishing on the slope. It's all washed away. So what you've got to do is come back, rebait, set that trap again, because if you don't, it'll take you a lot longer to get a bite. I'm not going to say you won't get a bite, you know what I mean? Certainly when there's loads there, you probably will get a bite, but that's what can happen when them fish are still a little bit spooky. Obviously the water's cold, it's not as coloured as what it has been. You will get the odd spooker. Usually it's carp. F1's are usually a little bit more confident. So what I'll do now, come back, set that trap again, and then we'll go again. We'll catch him. It's just worth, obviously, going through that with you because it's so important. I don't just want to stay there. Usually if you stay there, you catch a smaller fish, you know, a little gudgeon or a perch or a roach or something. That's it. So chop set again, pull a bit further forward, lift it over, lower it nice and slow, 2 or 3 seconds, up nice and slow, come back. So it's repeating that process every single time. And then we just lower that rig into position. Here we go. And we're just waiting again. So we're waiting for them nice, fast, clean bites. And remember, anything that spooks off and, you know, you get a bow wave, come back, set the trap again. See, there's a fish there now. Just waiting for that nice, fast dink. Won't necessarily like proper take your float under, but it's enough to sort of jolt you. You know what I mean? Them nice fast bites. That's the other thing with F1s as well. I know we have got our float dotted, and you do need it dotted down. That's a little tiny fish then. You do need it dotted down for F1s. Carp, you can have it, you know, probably have a full bristle out, but for F1s, make sure it's dotted. You can tell there's a fish there. You can see that float moving to see him there. He's not spooked off though. He's there, he's going to have it in. Because obviously there's micros in the mix, the only real bait that they can physically properly eat is your hook bait. And that's why it's so effective. Really is an effective way of fishing. Then, you know, if like 3 or 4 goes over sort of 15 minutes, you're not getting any signs, then try changing your pot size. You know, put a bigger pot on, try and force fish into your peg. I wouldn't necessarily go down a pot size. The only time I go down a pot size, a smaller one, that was a little dink then, would be if there was too many fish there and I felt as though there's that's hit something on the way down there then, and I felt there was, you know, too much competition. That's when I'd change what I was doing and go down a pot size, or even cut them micros out altogether and just feed pure ground bait. But usually sort of, yeah, this time of year onwards now, you're not going to get that problem. Because the fish do want to eat a bit. Come on, here we go. There's one there. You can tell there's one there, so it's just wafting my float back to the left a little bit. And you can see why now, folks. I have them back shots Tipp-Ex'd out wide, just so it's really visible. Oh, I see there's another one left me peg there. So these fish are pretty spooky today. Let's have another go for that. But you've got to be strict on yourself. Got to be. Don't just sit there and wait. I don't think the carp either. I think they're F1s that are spooking out. There we go. A bit of a read there. Right. Set that trap again. So you see I've been proper strict on myself, folks, yeah? Got 2 bow waves out and I've set that trap again. You're just waiting position. So you see where my back shots are in relation to my float. Right, trap set. Come on. Plenty of liners. I mean, there could be small fish, but I'd imagine there'd be liners off them F1s. What I'll do this next time is just have a bit of probably a change bait. Move on to an expander, but that's as I said, that's the beauty of like fish. See, that's another bow wave there then. So there's fish coming into that. So what I'm going to do now is have a bit of a change bait. That can be the difference sometimes. changing your hook bait can make all the difference. I'm going to put an expander on. We are getting the odd like little tiny sign of small fish. So all I've done different now, I've just put an expander on. Yeah, 4mm expander, that's the only difference I've done. Go on F1's, here we go. There's a fish on that straight away. That's it, come on. See, we're not giving it a big one when we strike either. There's nice little gentle lifts up. Somewhat there. They're really homing in on that feed. I thought it'd take a little bit, but it just shows you. There we go then, folks. Took a little bit longer, but that shows you the difference with a expander, yeah? So a little bit longer for a bite, but proper fish. So obviously the maggots weren't quite right before, just getting them too many little baby fish coming in. So you see, like this stamp of these F1s is pretty good today. Normally they're a bit smaller, but that is mudline fishing down to a T. You never want to miss out on catching them. He's like nailed it. I was probably a little bit slow on the bite with that one actually, so we can put that back in there. Was a little bit, a little bit slow on the bite on that one. He's in like the top lip, but like halfway down his throat. But that is the beauty of mudline fishing. Now, obviously, we've done the mudline over there. If it was too windy and you couldn't get over there, if you had bare banking down the margins, just do exactly the same there. There's no difference whatsoever with your rig and certainly with the feeding. So you've seen there, obviously, we didn't get to go up a pot size, down a pot size. If it is how it is, just stick with it. Keep putting that bait in, yeah? But experiment with, if you feel you're getting too many fish in your peg, then drop down a pot size, potentially drop the micros out and just go to ground bait. But usually it's your hook bait. Obviously we've changed to an expander there and it's happened straight away. Such a simple but very, very effective way of fishing, folks. I can't recommend it highly enough on these kind of waters, you know what I mean? Little snake lakes, that's where it lends itself to, but even more so F1. So get out, folks, give it a try and let us know how you get on. Yeah!
Right, you lads, very, very sorry to interrupt your video watching.
How dare you?
Quickly, if you haven't already noticed, we have managed to write a book, haven't we?
Yes, we have,
Which
Jamie.
is full of all our very bestest methods and features or whatever else we do on this wonderful subject of fishing. So if you haven't had a look already, go and have a look at winningways.shop and buy one for yourself.